Hello and welcome to Across Africa. I'm Georgia Calvin-Smith with our weekly look at stories from across the continent. Coming up in the programme, we take a look at the Central African city of Bria, which after a recent flare-up of violence is run by militia groups who've turned their back on efforts to move forward with a hard-fought peace deal. Also, a look at the endemic corruption undermining efforts to turn back Madagascar's political and economic woes. And age ain't nothing but a number, and that number is breaking records. We meet the South African athlete who, at 85, is running away from ideas about her limitations. But first, in Central African Republic, efforts to end years of clashes between warring militia have been set back by recent violence in the central town of Bria. Our correspondents report.
They patrol the city like the new masters of Bria. The former Central African capital of the diamond industry is now in the hands of this militia that takes the law into its own hands. Armed men patrol right under the noses of the UN peacekeepers.
Ok, je vais envoyer l'équipe B pour venir le chercher.
And here is the leader of this militia, Munir Mohammed. He leads this predominantly Muslim Seleka rebel group, but he claims to protect all Central Africans today, regardless of religion.
We're here for everybody, Christians, Muslims. People spread rumors about us, but we are all Central Africans, and we are here to protect everyone.
Yet the communal killings continue in Bria. In this district, hundreds of houses were burned. This is the aftermath of clashes about 2 weeks ago between the militia and another rebel group. About 60 were killed. Celestine escaped the massacre and returned for the first time to her pillaged house, mute with pain. She found refuge a few kilometers away in this new displaced persons camp, home to 25,000 Christians.
Living here is really difficult because we have nothing. Sometimes we cannot buy food for 2 days because there's no work. I'm also afraid. I'm afraid of a new attack on the camp.
These displaced Christians live apart from their Muslim compatriots who have taken refuge in other camps in Bria. This city has become a symbol for both the security and humanitarian crises in the Central African Republic.
Violent instability in Central African Republic has led to the deaths of thousands. The ongoing uncertainty has also inspired one cartoonist to use his art to encourage others to keep pushing for an end to conflict.
When Didier Kasai draws his cartoons, the radio is on. Not music, but reports on violent clashes in Syria. This time the unrest is far away from the Central African Republic, but it's still war, something the cartoonist denounces relentlessly.
Each time I draw something, each time that I write a caption for my drawing, it's for the people to understand the consequences of war and give them something to think about in order to avoid war again.
The cartoonist has seen war in his country when Seleka rebels seized power in 2013, leading to violent confrontations with anti-Balaka fighters. At the time, he felt powerless. Cartoons became his way of opposing the atrocities.
Drawing for me is like a weapon against barbarity and injustice.
Kasai learned the art of drawing on his own. He's now helping others develop their own styles and tell their stories.
He became very popular in France with his first comic book called Mangu Odyssey. His popularity grew even more with his cartoons describing the current political crisis in Central African Republic. It was well received in France, and that's what made Didier Kasai's reputation. He's a great cartoonist.
Kasai considers his war cartoons his most important work so far, but he's developed other stories, showing life in Bangui the way no newspaper can describe it.
South Africa's ruling ANC five-yearly conference wrapped up this month with deep divisions as factions battled over candidates to replace President Jacob Zuma as party leader in December. The two frontrunners are Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa and Zuma's ex-wife, former African Union Chair Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. Now, Jacob Zuma's reputation, meanwhile, continues to take a battering. Our team reports on one of the latest scandals linked to the South African leader.
In South Africa, every morning holds a surprise. One of the most recent is Jacob Zuma's alleged mansion in Dubai, worth 20 million euros. South Africans have also been reading about Zuma's son's business deals. For the last few weeks, South African journalists have been publishing the Gupta leaks, an email thread demonstrating the influence of the Guptas, an Indian family very close to the presidency.
It's, I suppose, equivalent to what WikiLeaks was. There are hundreds of thousands of emails, so we will be chipping away at this for a very long time. And a lot of the low-hanging fruit is out of the way, so perhaps some of the most damning stuff is yet to emerge.
But the Gupta leaks are not only about economic deals. The Gupta brothers spied on businessmen as well as politicians, creating files on their foreign travels. Security experts say this is worrying, as such information could not be accessed without the complicity of Home Affairs officials.
That would suggest that they are tracking them for some purpose. And we don't know what that purpose is, but the suspicion is that it wouldn't be for very positive reasons. It could be for intimidation, for threatening, and that's what the concern is.
Although the revealing details of the Gupta leaks are spreading quickly, no one can tell if this will end Zuma's presidency. In Parliament, he must still face a motion of no confidence.
Ivory Coast's battling to shut down the growing number of illegal gold mines. Foreigners and locals get in on the potentially lucrative racket, but at significant cost to state coffers.
Working in this Tongon mine may be illegal, but it's anything but easy. First, the workers have to pull hundreds of rocks from deep shafts. Then they need to pound them until they turn to powder. Put them in these machines, wash the ore. If they're lucky enough to find gold, they get to sell it to the best buyer.
In Burkina Faso, the price is higher. It can go up to 30,000 West African francs.
That's $51 per gram, more than twice of what they can hope for in Ivory Coast. And that's part of the problem for authorities. They say illegal gold miners are stealing the country's natural resources. They don't pay taxes and disrupt the work of legal mining companies.
These people come and set up in areas where they don't have the right to operate. They take our concessions, for example, where we have a government license. We can't work because these people are occupying the site illegally.
Located on the gold-rich Birimian belt, Ivory Coast has been aiming to expand its mining industry to diversify its economy. Production has gone up from 7 tons in 2010 to 22 tons last year. But many Ivorians who live in poverty feel they're not getting their share of the nugget. By working in illegal mines for just a few weeks, they earn more than during a whole year in cocoa plantations.
4 years after the presidential election that many hoped would bring the country out of economic turmoil, and Madagascar still has the highest rate of poverty in the world. There have been some improvements, but corruption continues to hold back progress.
In the enormous slum right in the center of the capital, plastic bottles, empty aerosol cans and pots of used varnish are all on sale or recycled. 55-year-old Naina earns €1 a day selling piggy banks he makes from old tin cans.
Sometimes I eat, sometimes I don't eat. I have to support myself. When I don't have enough money, I just accept it.
20-year-old Narendra sells old bottles. On a good day, she barely makes €1.
The Malagasy are really struggling. The state doesn't worry about the little people. For example, we should receive aid, but we don't. They don't give it to us. They keep it.
Rice bags cover the rooftops of the wooden, makeshift homes known as bag houses.
We want the government to come to our neighborhood. There are pregnant women here, women that give birth here. People are fighting for better lives, and others are fighting illnesses.
Corruption plagues government institutions and is the biggest hurdle to development.
There are old bribery habits, or the tendency to want to take advantage of every contract, even small contracts. The supply of school notebooks is a contract that's always seen as juicy, and everyone will get a little share, and therefore donors are being extremely vigilant.
After 4 years of political crisis and 50 years of economic freefall, the new government is struggling to rebuild the nation.
She's possibly the fastest grandmother in the world. 85-year-old Deirdre Larkin from South Africa hasn't slowed down with age. In fact, she's sped up and is now the over 80 world half marathon record holder.
Trainers on and muscles warm. It's 6 a.m. and 85-year-old Deirdre Larkin is getting ready to run a half marathon in the South African winter. The grandmother holds the over 80 world half marathon record and has become a famous face in her Johannesburg suburb. Deirdre was diagnosed with osteoporosis 16 years ago. Despite trying biokinetics and yoga, nothing helped. Now, 7 years later, she can be found pushing 10 kilometers every day, thanks to her son's encouragement.
Well, I never thought about my age. I just wanted to run, so I ran. It's only with these people keep on saying, oh, you're old, I kind of began to think of my age. But before then, I never thought of it. And I feel much more alive and much more, I got much more energy.
A former concert pianist, Deirdre now gives piano lessons to school children with the same dedication and enthusiasm she puts into her running.
After lessons, sometimes usually very exhausted because it's a long lesson, but also what happens is sometimes she comes from motivational talks, and that reminds me that what she does, it just reminds me that I can do whatever I want to do because she's defying all odds basically.
Last year, Deirdre participated in 65 races, including several half marathons. She hopes to continue running until her very last breath.
Well, that's it for Across Africa for now. Thanks for joining us. Do so again.